Hello, Forgers, and welcome to Metasight, a podcast where we discuss SoulForge fusion mechanics, meta, and maneuvers. I'm your host, Ben, also known as Onk, and joining me today we have...
It's Nate, the weekend. Hey, everyone.
Thanks for joining me again today. Today we've got
Mhm.
a bit of a preview to do. This week is Spirit Week
Mhm.
for the last winter spoilers, which kind of sounds like high school pep rally type stuff to me.
Spirit Week.
Yeah, got to root for the team spirits. Uh, but yeah, so we're just going to go over, unlike last time where we did a little bit of a game, I think we're just going to go straight into this one this week. And today we've got a good boy, a nice boy. We've got
Mm.
the Malicious Dire Hound. So, for those of you at home not watching the podcast, we've got a level 1 that's a 4/2 Beast Spirit. It has a deploy ability. You may destroy another one of your creatures to play a mindless zombie minion. And then when this is destroyed, you may give a creature +2. Interesting enough at level 1, but let's actually check
Mhm.
out level 2 and 3 before we talk too much about it. At level 2, it goes up to a 7/4, and it reads, you may destroy another one of your creatures to reanimate a level 1 creature. And then when this is
Mm.
destroyed, you may give a creature +3 attack. And then at level 4 goes up to a 10/7, and the deploy allows you to destroy a creature to reanimate at level 1 or level 2, and the attack bonus goes up to 4. So, looks like we have a competitor for Stitcher in this new set.
This card is incredible. I'm so excited to talk to you about it. There's so many ways I see this card influencing the current game, and it's all good. I think it's going to be really great to have this card.
Yeah,
What do you
absolutely.
think, though? What was your first thoughts?
Yeah, well,
The reanimate?
the first thing that stood out to me is that this is actually a forged creature. It's hard to see, but we got these little eyelashes on the set symbol, which means that it is a forged creature. So malicious is a new prefix, and direhound is a new suffix. So you can get a couple different types of direhounds, each one doing something a little bit different, I'm sure. One of the things that stood out to me right away is that if this is going to be reanimating, it's probably replacing Stitcher in the new set. I doubt Stitcher's coming back if this is coming in. And the fact that it has this deploy, destroy another one of your creatures, it's kind of building on what we saw last week with spoilers in the sort of Tempest and Nekrium destruction synergies going on. It's doing it both with this deploy and the malicious affix to just give a destroyed creature, or when it's destroyed, it gives a creature some extra attack. So yeah, that's my impression so far. Like I said, I'm guessing that it is not going, like, I don't think Stitcher and this are going to show up in the same set. And actually, I'm a big fan of Stitcher, and I think you are too, Nate. I think everybody at this point is a big fan of Stitcher. The Direhound has some advantages and disadvantages compared to the Stitcher in my mind. One is that you can destroy any minion or any creature. You don't have to have a minion on the field to benefit from it. And the other thing that's pretty cool about this is when you destroy, when you get to play the new creature, it doesn't have to be in the same lane as the creature you destroyed. So those are two things that jump out at me right away. What about you, Nate?
I picked up on the same things right away. I thought this is definitely better than Stitcher in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with that you're not losing like the forged aspect that Stitcher had. We saw some pretty cool cutthroat, hemophagic, like really cool Stitcher merged abilities, fused abilities, and this Dire Hound has that. It has more attack than most Stitchers do too. So like
Mm-hmm.
level 1 or 2, where I would have felt a little underwhelmed putting a Stitcher that has 1 or 2 attack in front of something. At least this Dire Hound can dish some damage.
Yeah, for
This
sure.
card, I think one of the things you mentioned is one of the things that I really want to highlight here is that any lane lends itself to controlling or manipulating a board a lot better than Stitcher did. Like it was kind of telegraphed. Like you and I have played a lot of Stitchers against each other. If I see a Gizmo in lane 3 and I haven't seen Ben Stitcher, well, guess what? I have to think of all possibilities and cover that lane. But here, it's coming back anywhere, and especially in aggressive matchups, this really scares me, right? Like this one in particular, the malicious, where you're giving attack, but any of these dire hounds, if all of a sudden I have to deal in any lane with any of the creatures I've seen previously, Something like a Tempe's Nekrium pairing looks a lot more deadly in the first 2 cycles, and into cycle 3. And there's just a lot more like permutations your brain has to go through in terms of lane placement that you didn't really have to worry about as much with Stitcher.
Right. Another thing too is with the level 1 of the Dire Hound, the fact that you can destroy a creature to get just a mindless zombie, you don't have to have something in your banish pile to play it for profit. It's actually a bonus because I've found with Stitcher a lot of times you may not have anything in your banish pile in cycle 1 and have a minion on the board and want to reanimate something, which makes playing Stitcher in cycle 1 a bit of a losing prospect. However, with this, you still get benefit out of it, right? And you're setting up for a reanimation in cycle 2 for one of your level 1s. And often with Stitcher, even when you're in cycle 2, you still only have like level 1s in your banish pile to worry about. So even though this never fully goes up to being able to reanimate any creature, most games just don't play out that way where you're trying to reanimate a third level creature. Usually what you're reanimating is a level 1 or a level 2.
That's a really good point. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, and we'd be remiss if we didn't mention the spirit aspect of this creature. It is Spirit Week, and if you checked out Stoneblade's preview yesterday, you would have seen that there is a new creature that does care about spirits being in your banish pile, and we also saw a few weeks ago with Nyx Nakia's new ability that gets better if you have spirits in your banish pile. So having more creatures with the spirit subtype, especially at common, like Stitcher was a rare. This guy's going to show up a bunch more than Stitcher ever did, and it has a relevant creature type. I mean, Stitcher had zombie as a relevant type, but this is relevant in the banish pile too. So yeah, I mean it's an all-around good boy.
Yeah, very good boy.
So what about talking about the malicious prefix? What are your thoughts on that?
It's interesting. It reminds me of sort of like Mech Mark 1 or something where you're trying to like after death still be able to influence. I don't like paying stats up front for after death effects. So
Yeah.
not loving it, but in this case it's not bad. I mean, it kind of lends itself to an aggressive playstyle. This thing's gonna chump block anyway 90% of the time. So
Right. Yeah, it kind of looks like it reminds me of the set 1 and 2 Fiend where it gave attack and health.
all right.
But Fiend had a pretty low stat line base, so I'm wondering if with the malicious modifier, if you're gonna get more stat points to work with. Like, it's hard to say because we don't know how much the Dire Hound is contributing to the stats and how much the malicious is contributing to the stats. But if you're not getting more than like 1 or 2 stat point penalty on the malicious modifier and you're getting that little extra attack buff after it dies, in a faction or in a pairing where you're caring a lot more about destruction synergy than having that little extra piece of attack to throw somewhere seems like it is a nice little after effect if you don't take too much of a stat penalty on the affix. And plus it doesn't scale that high, so my guess is that it does not hurt the stats that much. Because even 10s of 17 sort of like a 10-point stat deficit by the time we get here, but you add 4 there, so you're like a 6-point stat deficit. So it can't be that much that it's getting hurt by level 3.
That's not bad. I won't be upset, but it's not going to be a game-changing forged ability by any means. And it pairs fine here, but it might be disappointing on another creature.
The malicious, yeah. I'd be excited to see what other prefixes come back. I don't want to theory craft too much about it without knowing what's coming in and what's going out, because we had a lot of rotation from set 1 to set 2 on modifiers, so it's hard to predict what a good modifier would be with the Dire Hound from previous sets if they're not in there. So
yeah, one of my favorites, and probably yours too, is the Cutthroat Stitcher. So if this had a Cutthroat Dire Hound, I could see some pretty complex interactions happening.
Yeah, double destruction synergy going on.
Yeah.
Or maybe Doom comes back too. Doom Dire Hound.
Oh wow, Doom Dire Hound. Yeah.
Even with the alliteration. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like this card. I'm interested to see what else is coming in Spirit Week here.
Yeah, but for now we've got our Beast Spirit Dire Hound, so
Well, real quick, do you think they're going to bring back Necromancer or Ossuary Mech or any of the other kind of like graveyard banish, reanimating, ghastly renewal? Do you think this leans towards we're not going to see as much of that here in set
Um,
3?
Without having seen other spoilers, it's hard to say. I would imagine that Nekrium will keep at least 2 or 3 ways of reanimating to keep part of its identity intact.
Hmm.
This is probably one of them. Stitcher was like, technically it wasn't reanimating, it was replacing, but it was basically reanimating, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would be suspect if this was the only like reanimation piece, but there's definitely room for new ones. We saw the Tempe's one, the Tempe's Exalt that lets you bring back a creature in that lane when whatever's in that lane died. Um, so it's nice that like reanimate's branching out into other factions, but hopefully like Nekrium will still be like the king of reanimation, and this is just one of the pieces that we'll get to do that.
And do you think we're going to see an aggressive scientist suite in set 3 then for Necrium, where you get, Sigmund Fraud and all these like more aggressive
That
scientists? Where
that's a good question because I feel like what some of the developers have talked about, like I think Nick and Lucas, is that in set 3 they're leaning more into faction pairs and faction pair identities and leaning a little less on creature types.
Mm.
I mean, I think Spirit is a major identity. It's probably going to be like the Utera Nekrium identity because we also saw that Utera gets that new modifier. I think it's called Haunted that just adds Spirit to the creature type.
Oh yeah.
So we saw that on yesterday's preview. So we know it's going to care about spirits, but so far we haven't seen in any of their factions anything that indicates something that cares about a creature type. So it'd be nice to like kind of see a different direction from set 3 in what is emphasized, because I think in the first 2 sets the creature type emphasis was a little high to the point where if you didn't get a certain threshold, your deck just feels weak.
Yeah.
Hopefully, the direction that they're going with it is going to give us more like destruction aspects, and like that may be just much more easier to achieve on a higher density than trying to get the exact right creature types to go with, scientists or mages or whatnot. And the fact that with the spirit one they care more about it in the banish pile than being on board is really cool. I think that's a really cool direction to take it. It's like, you know, what sort of attrition have you taken with your spirits, and how can you power up the late game stuff with the spirits in your banish pile? So it's not entirely tribal in a sense. It doesn't care as much of your threshold because even if with one spirit you can get all 3 copies of it in your banish pile before you play your Caller of Souls to nuke your opponent's board with it, or like a that Nyx Nakia ability to get those extra.
Would have to be level 3 or 4 to really hit the most out of it. But
yeah, I imagine it's going to want you to have more spirits in your banish pile for an even greater effect for the Nyx ability. That'd be my prediction anyway. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, since it cares less about the board, more about the banish pile, and we haven't seen anything else, like I said, that cares about creature types on board.
Yeah, one last thought is Howl of Zith, one of my most confusing cards in set 1. Isn't I hope it gets reprinted here because it should be a real powerhouse here.
Yeah. I don't know if they need to bring back Forge Seal, but as far as the spirit payoffs, it's Howl of Zith will be nice. Maybe Spirit Charm from set 2 comes back and is a little bit better than it was, because there just wasn't a very high threshold of spirits other than the minions themselves. So maybe Spirit Charm will see some emphasis there too. As just sort of a side effect, but yeah, I think this is a pretty cool little common forge creature. A couple, we'll see Malicious a lot, and who knows, maybe Malicious adds Spirit to the creature type, because we saw that with the Haunted. So maybe that's where some of the stats are going too, because I can see this as being just a plain old beast, getting a little extra spirit from that maliciousness. So, but we'll have to see. We don't know.
I like it. Great card.
Yeah. So thanks again to Stoneblade for letting us preview this card. To the listeners, what are your thoughts on this Malicious Direhound? What do you think? It's better, worse than Stitcher? Do you like the change of pace where they're going with destruction instead of replacement here? Just I'd like to hear your thoughts. As always, if you can give this video a like and subscribe to the channel, you can get some more updates from us, and we will catch you. Yep, down
Like and
here.
subscribe.
Yeah, and we will catch you on the next episode.
All right.
Bye,
See you
guys.